Cujo here. I figured, we've had some weather here in the Midwest, which has really limited the flying time. So I figured I could share some of the joys of aircraft ownership in the Midwest with you. Part of that is cleaning up in front of the hangar after the snow we get, taking care of the plane, doing some of the odds and ends needed. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to update the GPS database, clean up around here a little bit, and you can see what that's like. And also, I figure I'll do a closer look at the inside of 78 Yankee. Let's take another closer look at the interior. Now, I've seen a variety of things online about the room in the Bonanzas. And this cabin, although this is the 4-seat Bonanza, is very similar to the A36. It's just the A36 is longer. And I wanted to make something clear because, if you look at what's written in the POH or online, it says it has a 42-inch wide cabin, which is pretty much the same as a Piper Warrior or an Arrow, and almost the same as a 172. But, I don't know where they measure that from. It must be relatively low, because this thing is much more spacious than a 172, okay? It's actually one of my biggest problems with the 172 is the limited space. I feel like my shoulder is impaling the person next to me, and I can never even get the door closed because I'm just so squeezed in. It's awful. I hate it. But in this plane, while not as roomy as a like Cherokee 6 or something, or a Lance, clearly, it definitely has a little bit more elbow room than all those other planes I discussed. The Cherokee Warriors, the Arrows, the Archers, the 172 for sure. I mean, you can see there's even an armrest here that you can put up. I put it up in flight when we were bringing it back from Houston with my instructor, and it was fine. I had plenty of elbow room. I didn't feel like my shoulder was up in his armpit. These seats are relatively far back right now. This one might actually be almost all the way back. And you can see the back seats, and they go back further. Okay, you can slide these back seats back further because of the aft CG. I generally keep them relatively close, far forward. But there's good room back here. I mean, good leg room, and they do slide back further. So and these windows are emergency windows. They'll pop out. It's a roomy plane. Wanted to take another close-up of the cargo compartment. Okay, cargo in here is actually quite cavernous. Now, remember though, you have the aft CG limitations. But you can see this is, I don't know, solid 3 feet. And you can put quite a bit back here as long as it's not terribly heavy because of the aft CG. But it's quite a roomy cargo compartment and a nice big door. Okay, let's take a quick look at the engine compartment. So I'll say my engine that I ordered, I ordered the IO 550. I ordered the IO 550 for it in August. And here we are in February, and it keeps getting delayed, so no surprise there. Everything is impossible to get these days. Luckily, it's running great. It worked out quite well that way. This is the IO 520 original engine. I looked in the log books. It looks like a couple of cylinders were replaced at some point years back. All the compression's relatively low at this point, around 48 to 50 last annual. But I'll say this, it doesn't use oil. I use about a quart every maybe 7 hours, something like that, 6-7 hours. And that's in the summer. It actually has been pretty good here with the colder weather. The oil, I need an oil change apparently because my new engine isn't ready yet. So it has 40-ish hours on it, maybe a little more, 40 some odd tack hours, and it almost is still clean, which is, I think is pretty impressive. Just starting to show signs of it getting darkish. It runs great. I could do 175 knots up at altitude. So, it's solid running engine. It's got the BNC alternator here. So, extra alternator, which is nice. It's got a backup pressure pump. Okay, we're going to pull the cards out. So, I don't know, a lot of you probably have done this or something similar. So, if you haven't, you're in for a treat. Pulling the memory cards out of the 530. So, it's not too hard, really. Not too bad. You just kind of push there in the middle, which pulls the handle out. And then you try not to break anything. There it goes. Got one of the cards there. One is for terrain and other odds and ends, and one is for the map data. So let's go ahead and take these over to the PC. So I brought a spare computer over. So I have my card reader here and a PC in the hangar. I got some Wi-Fi going so we can do our card updates here in the hangar. So we got the cards updated. I put them back in. We got the battery charger hooked up. Make sure the battery's topped off after it just went in for maintenance. So I think I'm going to come inside here and let's take a closer look at the panel. I'm going to go ahead and turn it on and walk through this stuff here. Battery, avionics. Okay, we see that they have our 24th of March, 24th of February 22, so we're good there. So that's good. Okay, let's kind of go through things here. Okay, so we got our airspeed in knots. Got the attitude indicator, the HSI, which we just had calibrated. That's the old ADF. It works. Turn coordinator. Here's my altimeter that we just had looked at. Vertical speed. Here's our manifold pressure, fuel flow gauge, TAC. Got the engine analyzer, standard engine instruments, tip tank fuel. Okay, so there's our tip tank fuel. There's the mains, the tip tank transfer pumps. So we hit those switches in flight and level flight if we want to transfer from the tips to the mains. We have our other CDI. Here's the autopilot. Okay, by the way, this is the switch here is the this one here. That is for the HSI, so it's either free running or slave to the magnetic compass in the back. Now that I have it calibrated, I could use that in slave mode. Okay, we have altitude bug, and we have the main autopilot control here for the KFC 150. We have a variety of switches here. So battery, alternator, standby alternator, pitot heat, strobe, beacon, nav, taxi light, land light. There's all kinds of lights. These pole knobs here are for the heater and the defrost, parking brake. These are the dimmers, all the dimmers. The trim, which is in a poor location, I have to admit. Landing gear lights. All of our fuses. And here's something I need to check on. Oh, pilot isolation, there we go. Okay, ELT. Okay, here's something I wanted to check. I never knew about this until coming back from maintenance. My landing gear light are relatively dim, hard to see during the day. They used to be really bright. Turns out that there is this little bitty switch over here in the corner. I want to make sure that that's all that is. Let's see. There we go, much better. I like that a lot. And here's our fuel selector. And another vent.